Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday, October 7th. A slow-moving cold front is approaching the east coast, and it will bring much-needed rainfall to much of the eastern part of the U.S., including the I-95 corridor region. Most of the rain for D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, Boston will come later this afternoon into the early part of tonight. And again, it will be a much-needed rainfall. We, of course, had a relatively dry month of September along the I-95 corridor region, and we could use the rain that is coming with this slow-moving cold front. Once the front pushes over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean, low pressure will form out over the open waters of the western Atlantic and really develop into quite a storm. Most of its impact will stay out over the water, but there looks like there will be some clouds and even some occasional showers backing into the I-95 corridor region and points to the east to the coastline over the next couple of days, Tuesday and Wednesday, even into Thursday, as a possibility from that western Atlantic low pressure system. Another cold frontal system looks like it'll arrive by the early part of the weekend, and that could reinforce a cooler air for the mid-Atlantic region during the early part of next week. This is the current surface map. Very noticeable frontal system right here, and it's a slow mover, and that will allow for a decent amount of rain later today into tonight along the I-95 corridor region, and it'll really shut off the heat wave that has been extended across the southern part of the nation. Northern Alabama, for example, Huntsville area, probably highs confined to the low to mid 70s today, maybe some strong thunderstorms to go along with this frontal passage, but a much different air mass coming into the deep south, because they have been certainly sweating quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. But this is a big push of a noticeably cooler air, and it's bringing much needed rain to much of the eastern part of the nation. Well, here's the rainfall already showing up along that frontal system. Western part of the Mid-Atlantic region, the western part of New England right now, and it will slowly slide to the south and east, and really it's a welcome sight to see this morning here, because again it's been very dry along the I-95 corridor for the last several weeks, and we'll primarily see the rainfall in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, Boston during the mid to late afternoon hours and into the early evening hours. It can be an embedded thunderstorm or two, quite breezy ahead of that frontal system, and mild and muggy as well. Basically a strong southwesterly flow ahead of the front. That front will then kind of stall out over the northwestern Atlantic. Low pressure will form right along that boundary zone over the next couple of days. Well, let's walk through last night's 6E GFS model run. First, we'll look at 850 millibar temperature anomalies, because quite an interesting pattern. Very, very cold air mass for this time of the year will slide into the heartland and then towards the Great Lakes, and it will be associated with a developing snowstorm that will produce some significant snowfall from Colorado all the way across to the Dakotas, and northern Minnesota could be in store for 1 to 2 feet of snow later this week. Well, we start off the day with frontal system right in this region right here, with colder than normal air on its north and west side, warmer than normal air as we start the day here on Monday to its south and east. Let's now push forward here, and that frontal system slides off the eastern seaboard by later tomorrow. Basically normal conditions follow in the I-95 corridor region, maybe a little bit cooler than normal, because there will be lots of clouds on Tuesday and Wednesday as low pressure forms over the northwestern part of the Atlantic. But look at this air mass. This is very cold for this time of the year. First into the northwestern part of the nation by the middle of the week, and then it slides south and east to the Rockies, into the heartland, and again there will be significant snow from Colorado all the way across the Dakotas to northern Minnesota later in this week. Now, this cold air mass kind of makes a northeast turn here towards the Great Lake region by the upcoming weekend, and then tends to filter into the Mid-Atlantic region late in the weekend and during the early part of next week. We keep pushing forward here. And again, the greatest thrust of that cold air will be across the northwest into the central U.S. and then towards the Great Lakes. And then it kind of filters in early part of next week. We're now a week from now, Monday and Tuesday of next week, still much colder than normal across the Great Lakes, and we finally get colder than normal by the early part of next week here in the Mid-Atlantic region. Well, let's take a look at the surface forecast maps from the 6E GFS model run. Again, lots of rain all along that frontal boundary zone. That is a slow-moving front closing in on the eastern seaboard. Some strong thunderstorms possible today in the deep south. Much cooler, for example, Huntsville, low to mid-70s. They've been used to the mid-90s for the past few weeks, really. And this front, once it gets off the coastline, will be really the focus of a strong low-pressure area that will form right along that frontal boundary zone. This is a Tuesday afternoon forecast map. And this low-pressure area will kind of sit and spin, have some strong winds just off the coast, and you'll have to watch out along the southern New England coastline to see if it backs in a little bit more, producing some strong winds even along the southern New England coastline here. Now we're into Wednesday, the middle part of the week. Again, some showers possible all the way back to the I-95 corridor region. The biggest impact will be along coastal sections from this low pressure area that will become quite a strong system here. It tends to sit and spin there. Now we're all the way into Thursday. Still some rain right along the coast, and maybe even clouds backing into the I-95 corridor region as late as Thursday. So this low pressure over the northwest Atlantic will have an impact from Route I-95 all the way to the coast in the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday time frame. High pressure centered over northern New England. Meanwhile, out in the central part of the nation, the Dakotas all the way to Colorado, snow. And again, there will be significant snow with perhaps a major snowstorm for the northern part of Minnesota right in this time period. Right in here, we get into the latter part of the week. We're as late as now Friday evening, potential major snowstorm at the end of this work week in northern Minnesota, for example. And again, accumulating snow expected from Colorado, across Nebraska, the Dakotas, into Minnesota during the latter part of the week. And that cold air mass first moves into the Great Lakes region, and then early next week, a week from now, spills into the mid-Atlantic region and the northeast U.S. So just thought we'd wrap up here with a look at something interesting. The snowfall that we've had across the northern hemisphere during Octobers in recent years has been above normal, and it looks like maybe that trend will continue here. We've already had some snow accumulations in the northwestern part of the U.S. Montana, for example, had a significant snow event last week. Looks like this week Colorado, Nebraska, the Dakotas, all the way to Minnesota could have significant snow. Look at this pattern here over the last several years. What we're looking at is snow cover anomalies during the month of October all across the northern hemisphere, not just the U.S., but kind of an interesting pattern here, and perhaps that will continue this month of October. And let's now take a look at the snowfall forecast map for the next several days by last night's GFS model run. And here it is. This is all the way through the upcoming weekend, and this particular storm over the next several days. Again, a very cold air mass for this time of year slides in the northwest U.S., then into the central plains, and then finally into the Great Lakes region. And the snow will accumulate from Colorado across Nebraska, the Dakotas. And look at this. This is the potential for the end of the week, Friday night time frame, up across the northern half of Minnesota, as much as 1 to 2 feet of snow possible. It's still several days away, but the bottom line is a significant snow event from the Colorado Rockies all the way up across the northern plains into the south central part of Canada. Perhaps part of a trend that we'll see continuing above normal snowfall in the northern hemisphere during the month of October. Well, that's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.